Welcome, everybody, to our fall edition of the Distinguished Innovator Speaker Series. We have a lineup uh, from today through December, and our first speaker, Alicia Hanf. Alicia is a TEDx speaker, visionary social justice warrior, entrepreneur, investor, veteran with a stint in Afghanistan, where she was working with explosive ordnance disposal, and a patriot. We're going to get to her very shortly. I'm Dr. Barry Sandrew. I'm Director of Entrepreneurship at Westcliff University, and I'll be your moderator today. For those of you online who are not aware of Westcliff University, we're an accredited university in Irvine. We have 4 colleges: College of Business, College of Education, College of Law, College of Technology and Engineering, and we're starting a College of Nursing. We have campuses here in Irvine and in Miami, and we're expanding elsewhere as well. We also have boot camps, cybersecurity boot camp, and a full stack boot camp. If you want to get more information about Westcliff, you can go on our website at westcliff.edu, and we're also available on just about every social media platform. What we're going to learn today, I believe, is how her military training helped her overcome a major tragedy in her life and ultimately made her a successful business consultant and a motivational speaker today. She's founder and managing director of Dear Mama Ventures, which is an early to late stage investment platform focused on Black, Brown, female, and veteran-led companies. We'll learn about that as well and what led her to form that fund. So Alicia, please, what a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much for that introduction. I feel like there were some of those things that you said that I really want to take for my own bio. So thank you for those incredible things you said about me. So just really quickly, show of hands. I'm curious to know, and for those at home, raise a virtual hand. But just has anybody in this audience served in the military, military family member, or have friends or family members that have served in the military? Yeah, great. Well, thank you for your service, whether it was you that served, whether you supported a patriot or somebody who served, or whether you were a family member, because oftentimes as a service member, we raise our hands and we go into service, but our families don't have a choice. And so oftentimes it's the families that make the biggest sacrifice because they weren't the ones that signed up. So just wanted to start off with a thank you. And while we're on the note, I also just want to start off with gratitude. Gratitude is something that has changed my life in the way I've rewired my brain into the way that I see circumstances. So I think, especially in today's world, it's such a gift that we can be here together. It's a gift that we can be here in person. And it's a gift that we're here to see another day. So thank you. So I'm excited to talk to you all about something that means so much to me in life, which is navigating business and life. I consider myself to be a little bit of a transition expert because I feel like we're constantly in transition no matter what. And that's something that the military taught me. And as a recovering ed tech founder, I feel like we're always just constantly in transition. So as I just said, I'm a recovering ed tech founder. I think any day you can be on a college campus is a good thing. I started off my entrepreneurial career in the ed tech space, launching an app. And so spent so many of my days knocking on professors' doors, asking them to please consider using my product in class. So it's just great to be back in the classroom. Okay, so we're going to start off popcorn reading style, starting with, no, I'm just kidding. We won't do that. So this is more up here just for the sake of having it. I promise I won't read all of this, but something I do want to share about my story is my journey to get to where I am has had a lot of twists and turns. It's been very non-conventional. So I think one of the biggest things I looked for in my life as an entrepreneur was that woman that looked like me. So I could say, because she's doing it, I can too. And oftentimes I feel like when people come and speak, it's, they talk about how many successes they had. And so oftentimes we're not identifying with the people that we see in the room. And so we often say, how do I get to that point? So my journey's been full of filled with lots of failures, lots of potholes, lots of twists and turns, lots of dead ends, but here I am still. So as Barry mentioned, I'm the founder and managing partner of Dear Mama Ventures. We're an early to late stage venture platform with the vision to close the ecosystem access gap that exists for a lot of people like us that are here in the room. So my story started off, I was born and raised in Southern California in Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach area, if anybody's familiar. And I went to the military really to spite my mother and looking for adventure. So I spent 6 years in the Army and ended up getting out of the military, going to Afghanistan, working with the Department of Defense. And it was when I was in Afghanistan that I realized that one of my superpowers was building ecosystems. I loved that I was able to go out and meet with the local people and that we were able to use empathy and trust to give helpful information to our troops that kept a lot of people alive and that were put a lot of networks that were still in place until we pulled out about a year ago. So after that, I decided that, you know what, working for the Department of Defense wasn't for me. I couldn't even get that out because my mouth was like, you are not going back there. But it just wasn't for me working in the government. And I was at a place in my life where I spent 6 years going to work, being in the military. I'd spent over a year working in government contracting, and I had to make a really big pivot, which was scary. So I started working with professional athletes, which is a huge swing in the other direction, and was working for the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know if there's any Ravens fans in here. If not, don't boo me because I will leave. But I started working with professional athletes. And what I realized was that professional athletes and military veterans have so much in common. And so I was like, if I can help professional athletes transition successfully, I can help military veterans transition successfully. So it was in the midst of starting my career as a sports agent where I discovered an incredible tragedy in my life. I learned that my mother was tragically killed from domestic violence. I'm a single mother. My youngest daughter, who's here, Stevie, was just about 1 at the time. And I got a call from my little brother, and he said 2 words that changed my life. He said, "Mom's dead." And in this moment, my whole world stopped. I left my entire life behind in Baltimore, moved back to California. And I told my brothers when I got home, I said, this is going to change us for the rest of our lives. We will never be the same, but we get to choose whether this changes us for better or for worse. And so we made a pact that we were going to choose to change the world a little to a lot each day. I'll get more into that story and sort of how that helped to shape everything as I'm going through these next slides. But that's when I really started what I realized was my transition journey. And so I feel like before we can talk about transitioning and navigating business and life, it's important to talk about values. So a lot of this conversation is going to be directed around using our values as our North Star. So I have 2 quotes up here. One, you can both read them. They've been up here for a while, but one of them that I love is who you are, what your values are, what you stand for. They're your anchor, your North Star. You won't find them in a book. You'll find them in your soul. And this is important because oftentimes we go through different workshops, we go through different challenges in life. We even start working for organizations and people try to give us our set of values. You know, you will comply with these things. And sometimes they are a fit, but oftentimes we find ourselves feeling a little resistance towards somebody else's set of values because they're not ours. And so this brings me to a principle called last known point, which is the military land navigation principle. So as I mentioned before, when I lost my mother, I'm a single mother of 2 kids. I just left my entire life behind in Baltimore, Maryland. I left my clothes in the closets, furniture in the house, came back to California. I didn't have anything. And I was trying to find myself, trying to help my family and myself navigate grief. And I was the most lost I've ever felt in my life. And I remember walking out to the beach in Hermosa and I could see the ocean. And I thought if I could just walk far out in the ocean as possible, the ocean water will come over the top of my head and it will silence all the noise in my life. And knowing that if I did that, obviously I wouldn't survive, I sat on the beach, I put my head in my hands and I screamed. And I said, I'm so lost. How did I get here? And in that moment, I heard my drill sergeant's voice from basic training say something to me. So when I was in basic training, we had to go out on this land navigation course, which is you're in the woods. They give you a map, a compass, a pencil, and you have to plot your course and find your way. Like I'm from LA, like I said, I didn't use maps. I didn't go out into the woods. Like I'm a city girl. That was not for me. So the drill sergeant saw this look on my face of being completely lost. And he said, "Do you know what it means to find your last known point?" And of course, I said, "Hell no," in the most respectful way that I could have. And he said, "When you get lost out there, and you will, don't panic, look around, take a breath, and go back to your last known point. That's the last place you remember being found." And so when I was feeling incredibly lost on that beach, drowning in my own grief, and I heard my drill sergeant's voice say, "What is your last known point?" I went back to my, at that time being in the military. And what I started to fall back on was my values, the sense of camaraderie, the sense of leadership, the sense of feeling like I was belonging. And so that's essentially the principle of last known point. And I feel like oftentimes in life, especially as we're navigating career transitions, as we're in college, we come to these moments where we're saying, "How did I get here? Like, this doesn't feel like me." And oftentimes we start comparing ourselves to other on social media or TikTok. We'll say, "Well, if only I get married, or if I graduate, or if I make more money, if I buy this car, like if I do all these things in every direction, then I'll feel better." And what we don't think is that we have to go back to that last place that we remember really feeling like ourselves, really feeling sure, feeling those values, feeling that sense of that thing that you feel in your soul, like that first quote said, and then use that to get back into alignment. And so one of the things I mentioned on here is, in order to get where you're going, you have to know where you come from. So oftentimes we're moving so fast through success, graduation, this thing to the next thing, that we really forget where we've come from and how that plays a pivotal part in who we are. And so I list life as a series of micro adjustments. I'm an entrepreneur. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm sure a lot of you are very entrepreneurial as well. And oftentimes we get so stuck in one direction. And if we just make one pivot to the left or to the right, one small change, it really sets us back in the right direction. And so I feel like with the exercise of last known point, sometimes when we're going back to feeling lost and getting back to ourselves, it's just as simple of having a conversation of, what's important to me? What do I like? What excites me? What don't I like? Because I feel like that's one of the most important things. What don't I want to do anymore? And using that to really get back on track. And so a lot of that too is going back to your North Star. So developing your values, which we'll talk about. And then a message that I always say to everyone is just keep going. You've got this. So we often hear in entrepreneurship about the overnight success that took 10 years. Work takes work. And so when I first launched my tech company, I had 3 months worth of savings in my bank account. And I said, okay, in 3 months, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to sell my company for millions of dollars. That did not happen. This was 6 years ago. So just keep going and just know that you have it. So Jay Shetty, if you're not familiar with him, please get familiar. He has this incredible quote, but he says, "Look at yourselves 10 to 15 years from now and ask yourself if that is where you want to be. And if the answer is no, you need a new path." And I feel like this is really important because I grew up in a household where I was either a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure. And so I'm a failure because I'm an entrepreneur. And so I didn't have the option of doing anything else. And I think of even when I was in my military career, working at my Department of Defense job, I saw myself, almost 10 years into a career path, looking at what my future had ahead of me. And I was like, I don't want that for myself. Like, I'm unhappy if I continue down that road. And it took a lot of courage to start over, but it's something that, look at your life in the future. And if that path isn't what you're on now, isn't leading you to where you want to be, then don't be afraid to pivot and to start something new. So find your purpose and your why and change that as many times as possible. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we can make as humans is we have our purpose and something that we care about, and we think that it's that thing forever till death do us part. Don't be afraid. And in fact, encourage yourself to change that as many times as you need to until you truly find what sticks. And then identify your core values. And so core values, these are just the beliefs that are most important that will help us identify and find our way in the dark. And so another Jay Shetty quote is, "You don't know what you need in life until you know who you are." And I think like this is one of the big, I picture, if I had more time and if I had a magic wand, I would have this like beautiful illustration of the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland on the mushroom, the like, who are you? And because I feel like this is one of the biggest questions that we are constantly asking ourselves or being confronted in. I know one of the hardest things I've ever had to do recently was like redo my Twitter and Instagram bio, and you only have so many characters to like talk about all that you are. And I was like, okay, well, very quickly, who am I? And so this is an exercise from a gentleman. I can't remember his name. I'll find it. But it's essentially how to discover your purpose in 5 minutes or less. So we are going to do this together all at once so that no one feels alone or vulnerable. But essentially, one of the biggest questions that people find themselves asking themselves and like struggling with over life and spend a lifetime understanding is, what is my purpose and who am I? So this is a really quick exercise to just get a purpose statement, and you can use it however often you want. So we're going to do this all at the same time. So when I say, what is your name? Everyone's going to say their name together. Okay. So we're going to see. So what's your name? Alicia. Okay. We're going to try that again. What's your name? Alicia. Okay. So now this, what do you do question. So this is, or the, what do you do? Or the one thing that you're supremely qualified to teach people. Like, what is that thing that is your it? Okay. So what do you do? I'm a storyteller. You guys left me hanging. What if I said something embarrassing? Shame. Okay, she's laughing. Okay, so we're gonna try that again. Hopefully more than just me. I'm not even gonna say anything. I'm afraid now. Okay, so what do? I'm a storyteller. Thank you. So happy. Okay, and then who do you do it for? I picture, what's the song? They ask me who I do and who I do it for. Okay, I have to do like one rep lyric every time. So that was it. Okay, so who do you do it for? So it can be anybody, anything, but like, who do you do that thing for? So who do you do it for? My daughters and for all dreamers. Okay, great. And then what do these people want or need? So I'm going to give you a second to think about that because I want to make sure I'm not alone. Okay. What do these people want or need? Help discovering their purpose. Okay. Did somebody say the world? Were you describing me? Your children. Yes. Yes. We need some therapy for the parents of the children who want all the world. Okay. And then how do they transform as a result of what you give them? So I'm just going to let that sit. Okay. How do they transform as a result of what you give them? Okay. Now we're ready. Okay. How do they transform as a result of what you give them? They have permission to pursue their dreams. Okay. I know you said it in your hearts. Okay. So notice only 2 of those questions are about you. And that's an important thing to think about, because when we are discovering our purpose and living in a life of service or just benefiting others around us, it's so much easier to feel good and to feel on track and to just grow exponentially whatever it is that we want to do. So this is now a purpose statement. And so we can take this. I'm going to give us all a second to think about this. You can certainly write this down or keep it for later. But it's I blank for blank so they can blank. So he's like, I work my butt off for my children so they can have the world. Okay. So it's like, it can be that simple or that complicated. So I'm going to give about 5 seconds. Okay. Are we ready? All right. I'm curious to know what yours is. Okay. So on the count of 3, I had a feeling. Okay. Are you ready? Yeah. I give people permission to pursue their dreams so they can find their purpose and create a better world. I did that wrong myself. Okay, we're going to do it again. So I blank for blank. Okay. I just messed up my own thing. Okay, so I need to go back. See, this is being vulnerable. Okay, what's your name? What do you do? I'm a storyteller. Okay, so I'm a storyteller for my daughters and for all people around the world so they can pursue their passion and find their dreams. Okay, but this is an interesting exercise statement. So I actually, if I had my fund, I built this into my investment thesis because part of my fund is I wholeheartedly believe that giving people the opportunity who are most overlooked in life, so that's the women, the people of color, Black and brown military veterans, when given the opportunity and giving people a chance who've had to overcome all odds to be successful, they will rise to the occasion time and time again. And so my biggest pursuit is giving people the opportunity and the permission to pursue their dreams so that they can create a better life for all of us. And I had to do this exercise a few different times to get to that, but it really helped me in crafting my purpose. So that when people come up to me and they say, oh, well, you're raising $200 million, name a woman that's done that. Or, you are a single mother. Who's to say you can do XYZ? Or, why don't you do things this way? I can stand firmly in my purpose. And I can say it doesn't have to be about being a single mother or about being a woman of color or a military veteran or this, that, and the other. Like, I know my purpose and this is my plan. So this is my 5-point inspection that I give to people. There's not 5 points, but it's because it starts with 5 people. So there are a lot of haters out there. That's like the most technical way I can say it. And when we start to define our purpose, even with things such as like going back to college, changing your career, dating, like there are so many people really think that dating is a team sport. It is not, so we get a lot of feedback on all these different changes or anything that we want to do in our life. And so find your short list of fans. So these are your 5 people that matter the most. So Brene Brown has this exercise where she says, take the smallest post that you can literally find, the baby ones, because the list should be so small, and write your 5 people whose opinions matter. And if somebody gives you feedback and they're not on that list, like do what you will, don't take constructive criticism, but no, like these are my people who've got my back. They're in my corner. They're aligned. This is my squad. This is my tribe. And that will really just get you far in life. I think that these people are also your accountability partners. So I work so hard and I do a lot of traveling. And one of my 2 people on my list had a friend intervention a couple weeks ago. And they said, you're not available for friends as much as you used to. We're curious if you're spending as much time with your children. Like, let's check in. Are you prioritizing the things the way you need to? So I think these are important people. And then get their buy-in and go sell the dream. And then know when to hit the panic button. So these are also the people in your life that when things start to go in a path, that you can call them and ask them for help, but they keep you accountable for knowing when to hit that pivot and panic button. And so wrapping things up, because I want to give time for questions and answers. These are essentially, this is like my list, like my do or die list. So the top of that is kill the doctor, lawyer, or failure mentality. So often in life, we get caught in this, like, if I'm not this job or that job, like I'm not successful or I'm not doing my thing. Like, get rid of that mentality, find your purpose and do what you want to do and make that happen for yourselves. Gratitude will change your life. In my most depressed state of life, gratitude got me up in the morning and saw me to rewire my brain so that I see problems as opportunities. So find something every day, large or small, to be grateful for. And then Brene Brown has this quote where she says, don't puff yourself up, don't make yourself small, just show up and stand your sacred ground. There are so many times where I'm the only woman of color in the room, the only you name it. And there's so many times I walk into rooms with billionaires, with athletes, with you name it. And I think, am I enough? And there's so many times in life, especially as women and people of color, where we get told these things that make us feel like not enough isms. And so this is just a reminder to just show up and stand your sacred ground. Whoever you are, show up and be that person and be your true authentic self. Find your tribe. So there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You all are in a very unique situation, having a .edu email address where you can literally email anybody in the world or DM them on LinkedIn and say, I'm in college, no matter how far you are in your career, I would like to talk to you about XYZ. So there are so many resources here. Look around you, to your neighbors, to your left and your right. Like, these are people that you should connect with and have at other stages and walks in your life. So just find your people. Do not do life alone. And then let your values be your North Star. And the biggest thing and sort of the call to action is that when you get lost in the world, and you will, don't panic, don't run around, don't freak out, don't buy a Lamborghini. Just find your last known point. And that's your set of values, the last place you remember being yourself. And so trauma was my teacher. It led to my purpose, but we all have a unique story to tell. We all have this rare and unique sense of grit that makes us uniquely us. So lead with that, stand proudly in your truth, and boldly and authentically you. And that is that.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I'm in the hot seat.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to let everybody know that this is being live streamed on TikTok and Instagram right now.
I have my first TikTok now.
There you go. Alicia, you really influenced me. I did a workshop last week on the entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah.
One of the mantras is fail early, fail often, but always fail forward.
Yes.
And in the middle of that, I basically said, fail early, fail often, find your last known point, and then fail forward.
Yeah.
It's a very important thing, and it fits perfectly. It really does. Now, now you after all of this stuff happened to you, you did find some support in Bunker Labs, didn't you?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yes. So for those who have not heard about it, Bunker Labs is an accelerator for military veterans who are entrepreneurs. So I heard about Bunker Labs when I was an entrepreneur. I called my friend. I said, I'm quitting this business. This sucks. Why would I ever be an entrepreneur? I'm just knocking on college campuses all day. And he said, have you heard about this organization called Bunker Labs? And before he could finish telling me about it, I Googled it. And I was like, wow, this is my tribe that I talked about. These are people that are like me. And there is an accelerator with people who are going to support me in my business. So I literally showed up and I was like, I will sweep floors and take out the trash. Just like, let me be here. And they let me in the cohort. And I ended up taking that cohort over, relaunching it and scaling that organization, helping to scale that organization to 37 chapters. So it's an incredible network of military veterans and military spouses who are entrepreneurs. We had weekly and monthly networking events. And it was just this sense of like, entrepreneurship is lonely and very hard. And we don't have all the answers, but we're supposed to as like CEOs of the company. And it was a place where I could go and say, help.
Very good. You talk about a Dear Mama Fund being for the culture, by the culture. Could you explain that?
Yes. I can't even believe I didn't say this. So this is very interesting. So my fund is called Dear Mama, like Tupac's Dear Mama. So as I said, I lost my mother very tragically to domestic violence. Last May, I was working with this woman who would always ask everybody, what is your dream? And one day she asked me my dream and I snapped at her. I said, what you don't realize is that dreaming is a luxury that most of us don't have the ability, the luxury of pursuing. You know, I don't wake up every day, well, I used to not, then say like, I'm going to pursue my dreams today. It was like, I have 2 kids I have to feed and take care of, you know? And so when she asked me this, I just like I was like, I'm out. I went to my mother's grave for the first time since losing her. And I wrote her a letter. And I said, Dear Mama, I wholeheartedly believe it's my mission and purpose in life to create an ecosystem where people can show up vulnerable enough to dream and have the resources to execute on them. And from writing that letter, that's where I had that purpose moment, like, oh my gosh. From writing that letter, I immediately saw Dear Mama, my handwriting, and I went to my car and put on Tupac's Dear Mama and like bumped that Dear Mama around the whole cemetery. People were probably like, okay, inappropriate, but we're right. So I played it, but I was listening to Tupac. You know, we have money for wars, we can't feed the poor. Facts. We're not meant to survive. It's a setup. I'm just trying to pay my rent, but every road leads to the pen. If the man can't make one, we have no right to tell a woman when and where to create one. Keep your head up. And I was like, these are instructions. And so at that time, I just said, forget it. The other fund is out that I was working on. I'm launching Dear Mama Fund for the culture, by the culture. And what that means, so there were hundreds of millions into the billions of dollars pledged after George Floyd to support Black and Brown entrepreneurs, to support women. That wasn't done, right? People were not putting their money where their mouths were. I was working for a fund at the time that was not doing that. It was a lot of empty promises. So I said, forget this. Like, I'm going to be a part of the solution. I'm launching my fund and we're actually going to invest in these people.
Yeah. You know, when you were in the military, I think you were in a team of 14 men.
Mm-hmm.
You were the only woman.
I am.
Yeah.
I am a woman.
And the interesting thing, and I've heard this once before, and it really stuck with me, that a lot of people, a lot of women in that situation would try to mimic or mimic men
Yeah.
and as role models, that sort of thing. You went the other way and you determined what was your authentic self.
Yes.
And that's really important. Could you explain that?
Yes. So I was the only woman on a 14-man team. We didn't even call it a 14-person team. So we were a special branch of the Chemical Corps known as technical escort. And I was the only woman, and all the teams only had one woman. And so all of us had to be like really great in one thing, whether it was like shooting or like doing, all this very masculine stuff. And so I loved it for that aspect because I got to do things that were more adventurous that I never thought I would have the ability to do. But every time we had to go on a mission, I would get picked every time to go on mission. And I would always ask them, like, why are you picking me? Like, don't you want so and so to go? And they would say, no, we want you to go because you have combat multipliers. So they would say, you have a unique set of skill sets as a woman that we don't have. There's so many of us and only one of you. We need you on every single mission. And I thought of things differently. And that's one of our mantras of the fund is it's time to reimagine everything. My perspective on things helped our team save time on missions, on money, just getting things done in a better way. And then my ability to be more nurturing and empathetic really helped us in so many different scenarios.
Very good. By the way, any questions, raise your hand. I'm going to throw a number out and I want you to take it from there.
Okay.
$130 billion.
Less than 1%. So of that number, $130 billion, and it's more, less than 1% of that goes to women of color. Less than 2% of that goes to women. More terrifyingly, $70 trillion is invested, and less than 1% of that is managed by somebody that looks like me.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
guys have questions?
Yeah.
One,
How important is social media? Mhm.
Oh man, those are such great questions. Okay, so first question, how important is social media in establishing your brand? If this is somebody that would like to help me with my brand, I mean, yes. I think, it's so important to me because I think I'm really in the business of storytelling. And so I think social media is the best outlet for that. Now, back in my day, I went to school for a marketing major in 2012. And so things that exist today are so much different than even what I experienced back in my day. And so this is an area that I think a lot of us need help with. There's so much noise now on social media between like Facebook is canceled, Instagram, we're still using it. You should be on Twitter, but now everybody's on TikTok. And how the heck do we TikTok? So yes, social media is extremely important in telling our stories. I think we need more help in how to do that effectively and how to do that at scale for everybody. And just to like take the pressure off of you don't have to be so cool, just get out there and do it. And then the second question was, do I have a routine that makes me successful? This is the most important thing to my success in life is my morning routine. So every morning I wake up and I have 5 breaths of gratitude. And this came from a place of being extremely depressed where I'd wake up in the morning and I'd say like, how do I get here? I'm over it. And I noticed one day the light coming through my window and I said, that's really beautiful. And I was grateful for that. And I kept building on that because people always say, oh, go meditate. And I do meditate now. But at the beginning, when I started, I couldn't sit there for 20 minutes. I was like, this is more stressful. So I could take 5 breaths, right? We're breathing all day. I could give myself 5 breaths of gratitude. And then I write. So there's an author called, oh my gosh, I don't remember the author's name, but the book is called The Artist's Way. And there's this practice, and a few of you are nodding your heads, you've heard of it. There's this practice called morning pages. So I get up every morning and I journal 4 pages. And then I write down every single thing that I want to happen in my life. And I meditate on what that reality is for me. And I remind myself every single day to take the freaking pressure off because we put so much pressure on ourselves and it's just not that serious. So thank you. Yes, Stevie has a question. We have to say it loud for people in the back. How did I feel being on a 14-man team? This is a great question. So at first I felt, how did I feel being on a 14-man team, 14-person team? At first I felt like I was never going to be strong enough or accepted. And what I realized was that it was the complete opposite, that I'm stronger than I know, all of us are. I was stronger in so many ways in other areas than a lot of the team members were. We all had our strengths and I was 100% accepted and actually encouraged to be myself. And this has helped me. One of the biggest things that's helped me in my career, because working with professional athletes, I'm often the only woman in the room. Working in venture capital, I'm often the only woman in the room. Hopefully we're changing that. And so it's allowed me to show up authentically and be comfortable in my skin in those environments.
He once mentioned you were sitting at a table and some guy came up to the table and you were with another a colleague, male colleague. And he said, sorry to interrupt you, but I want to pitch you on something. And he proceeded to pitch to the guy.
Yes. This has happened many times. Yes. So this is, I think recently, I'm trying to think if I just told this on a story. Oh, I did on a podcast. So yeah, I was sitting at a table and somebody came up and wanted to pitch, and they ended up pitching the person next to me who was not in venture capital at all. Meanwhile, I was very interested but never got asked the question. So yes,
Yeah.
there's that.
Um, Initially, you didn't even bring up the fact that you're a veteran, correct?
Correct.
And you were called out on that.
I was. Yes. So I was at a pitch competition at USC. I'm going to say the guy's name because he's important. His name is James Bottom. He's a great just resource to all entrepreneurs. But I was pitching my company and he interrupted me in the middle of my pitch and he said, "Wait, stop, time out." And I thought he was going to say like, "You suck, please get off the stage." But he was like, "Aren't you a veteran?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, why is that not anywhere in your pitch deck?" And so at the time I wasn't identifying with being a veteran. I think that oftentimes people see veteran and they think of this like Rambo type or like a GI Jane or someone with PTSD. And so a lot of my work has actually been in rewriting the narrative so that when people see veterans, they see leaders, they see people who have, millions of dollars of leadership invested in them, people with values, people who are just like, I was going to say a curse word, people who are fierce. And same with the fund. I want people to walk into a room and they see us and they say, "She's the venture capitalist. I'm going to pitch her." For people to see women and to see people of color and to think they're the innovators, like they're the leaders, they're the ones changing things, they're the ones we want to invest in.
Very good. We talked about, or you talk about the transition of military to civilian life and how
Hmm.
difficult it is. But you also, working with the Ravens, saw that the same thing happens with athletes. We have a huge athletic program here, and with some incredible athletes that are looking to go pro, frankly.
Hmm.
And it's important to know that uh, the small percentage of pro athletes are really highlighted,
Yeah.
and the rest of them have difficulty transitioning. Could you
Right.
go into that a little bit?
Yes. So it's interesting because it's like 1% of the population serves in the military, and less than that is, goes into the league and makes it. So it's just such small communities. But I think oftentimes with veterans and athletes, and specifically athletes, you are trained to be a specific way. So in the Army, we're trained in this specific skill. It's called our MOS, our military occupational specialty. If you're on a football team, or you're a linebacker, whatever your position is, you're trained to play that position and your identity is wrapped up in your uniform. What happens is when we take off that uniform, oftentimes our skill goes with it. If I'm a linebacker in the NFL, I'm not going to be a linebacker in a business, although like actually let's define that as what your position would be on a team. But and then our identity, that my name is on the back, right? So the jerseys, then our name isn't on the front, our name is on the back. So we take off that identity of now like my name was already on the back and now the thing on the front is I'm no longer associated with it. Who am I? And so oftentimes we'll see that athletes will fall into the similar patterns of depression, that hard transition. And also, if you think about it, you're making such a large majority of money doing one thing, used to living a certain lifestyle. And then how do you find a position or career that sustains that afterwards? So are we giving people the education, the investment, opportunities while they're athletes so that they can transition successfully? Most athletes, I don't want to say most, I don't like blanket statements, but statistics will show that athletes, it will be about 5 years before athletes run out of money or end up, facing homelessness and some of those other challenges that military veterans face. So I think there are so many opportunities for athletes now more than ever. If you look at the social power that athletes have now versus back in the day, there's more opportunity for the Michael Jordans because of social media. You said the power of social media and getting brand deals and everything else than there were before.
Mhm. I have to ask you a question about, well, I've got my doctorate in
Hmm.
your podcasts. I've listened to every one of them. They're all fascinating, and you're admired. It's obvious by a lot of very significant podcasters. Who is your role model and why?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Before I answer this very important question about who is the role model, I just want to say one more thing about the athletes, because you said there's a lot of them. So if you are an athlete and you're listening, know that there's more to just being an athlete, right? Nobody else is investing in that leadership like you have, the teamwork, the camaraderie, the hard work, dedication to know how to win, but to know how to lose graciously. These are some of the top things we look for in successful CEOs and leaders. So I just wanted to, excuse me, say that. And then who is my role model? So my role models in life are really my daughters. So Stevie, my youngest, is here. My oldest, Jordan, is in school, and they've taught me how to listen, how to love, how to learn. And so they are my biggest role models.
During COVID, one of the podcasts, you said that you're not CEO in your house. They are.
Oh, I'm not in charge. No, but thank you.
Yeah.
No, I'm not in charge. Oops. But yeah, they are my role models. They just keep me anchored in what matters the most.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody really believes in me as much as they do either.
I don't know. Let me ask you a question about NFTs. I think
Okay.
you actually released some Tupac NFTs,
Uh-huh.
correct? Did they sell? Were you able to raise any money with them?
So we have the Tupac NFTs. So Tupac, as you can imagine, is somebody who is very, very important to me. And I want to make sure that when we release Tupac NFTs, that the family's involved, that it's done in a very thoughtful way, and that it's in supportive of exactly what he would want it to go to.
Mhm. Very good. And that was in Miami. We released those, correct? Yeah.
We didn't technically release them; it's done, but yeah, we're holding off on those.
Okay. So where is Mama Ventures right now? Are you still raising capital, or are you
Yeah,
you're looking for companies as
we're
well?
looking for companies to invest in. We're also raising capital, so we're looking for LPs. We're looking for investors. We're looking for partners, storytellers, people who believe in the mission and can help evangelize on our behalf.
Very good. And you're bringing veterans into the program significantly, in a significant way.
Yes. So we have veterans on our team. We invest in veterans, women, people of color, but we are looking for highly innovative companies by inspiring, bold, and founders with rare grit. So they're all across the spectrum. But yes, veterans are part of the team. We invest in veterans and we support veterans organizations.
Any particular industry you're looking at?
We invest alongside in the ESG space. So whether it's clean tech, ag tech, sports and media is a big one, in the metaverse, of course, healthcare, education, but we're mostly industry agnostic.
Okay. Yeah, I know that you were involved with LG for a little while,
Uh-huh.
correct? I mean,
Yes.
yeah, the manufacturer, television manufacturer.
Yes. Do we have LG TVs in here?
Y-
We're just going to say yes.
Yeah, they're all.
So yes, LG is a huge LG Nova, which is their innovation arm in Silicon Valley. So, and we're currently right now, for any entrepreneurs who are listening, LG is looking for partners. So they're looking for business units. They're looking to build new business units with entrepreneurs. So at any stage, early to late stage, they're looking for companies in the area of healthcare, the metaverse, innovation for impact, electric mobility. So the ESG space, I'm forgetting one, smart homes, but really the call for in entrepreneurs at all stages that they can help give grants to build businesses or to invest capital in to help scale. So if anybody's interested in learning more, they can reach out to me and I can send them information about LG Nova.
One thing that became very clear looking at your life is that you're not afraid to be vulnerable, not afraid to ask for help. One person you highlighted was Juan Sanchez. Tell me about her?
If only Fawn knew how often I talk about her. So for one, I'm very afraid of being vulnerable. I'm very often afraid to ask for help, but I'm courageous enough to do it because I know it's important. It's scary to stand vulnerably in front of somebody or in a group and to even say like, I don't have all the answers. Like that's often not a good feeling, but I've had to have the courage to pursue, to get beyond that. And so Fawn Sanchez is a mentor of mine I met when I was in the military. And she was a captain. And when I was getting ready to transition from the military, I don't know what prompted me to do this, but I sent her an email and I said, can we please have an informational interview? I don't know what I'm doing after the military and I need help with a resume. And she helped me. And in fact, she got me my next big career after Afghanistan. And she mentored me and she stood up for me time and time again. And so She's one of the most influential women in my life in that she gave me a hand up, not a handout. She gave me a helping hand when I needed it, really mentored me, and just showed me what a good woman leader is.
You call your community the collective,
Yes.
and you're trying to create this group,
Hmm.
frankly, support group. How does that relate to each one teach one?
Yeah. Oh man. Has anybody heard of Each One Teach One? It's a really cool African proverb. So each one teach one is another African proverb of that's one of our core values of our fund. And so each one teach one is essentially when we were brought over as slaves, we weren't allowed to read or write. And so all of that was taken away from us. So if we learned something, it became our obligation as people in the community to teach it to our family, our neighbors to our left and to our right. And so that's really what each one teach one is all about. If we learn something or have access to something, it's our obligation to then share that wealth with others. And I feel like that's not something that's done in the Black and Brown community. It's not something that I see done as much with women. And so we're really just big on making sure those resources are shared as a collective, as an ecosystem. One of the things that I love to say is the strength of the wolf is the pack. The strength of the pack is the wolf. So how do we come in with highly dangerous, accomplished individuals? We're really providing this like pack that we're a part of.
And one of your primary goals is to flip the VC community on its head,
Yes.
because only 2% of women are managers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So venture capital is ready for disruption. I think if we want to say that the systems are broken or they're working exactly the way they're meant to. My goal at Dear Mama Ventures is to democratize venture capital and to really disrupt it. So right now, in order to be an investor, you have to be accredited or qualified purchaser, which means you have to have anywhere from essentially $2 to $5 million or more dollars in the bank account. I don't know that many people that have that much money just lying around. So what that does is it excludes a lot of people into investing and excludes them from having the opportunity to create generational wealth through investment. And so what my fund has a really unique model that we're democratizing venture capital and that anybody can invest into my fund. You don't have to be an accredited investor or a qualified purchaser. You don't have to have millions of dollars. And when you invest into the fund, we've de-risked it because we have a nonprofit model attached to a for-profit VC. So if you make an investment into my fund, you get a tax benefit automatically. So we've de-risked your investment. And then when your returns come back, they're coming back in a tax-free environment. It's a model called the Donor Advised Fund. It's a model that the uber rich, the Donald Trumps of the world have used for so long, and they've used it to keep continually having wealth. And ordinary people don't have access to that. And so I want to make sure that everybody has access to this model and the opportunity to invest.
That's great.
Yes.
This has resonated with a lot of people, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yes. But we need help like you, Barry. We need someone like you who's on these,
I'm there.
to say, not, I wasn't putting him on the spot. We need you to write a check right now. No, but people like you evangelizing of saying like, how are we educating more people? Like I feel like in the vein of each one teach one, I feel like it's my responsibility to give more people awareness and access to this type of opportunity.
And you provide capital, social capital.
Yes.
Define social capital.
So I think that, our biggest failure right now in investing in the space is that we just give financial capital, which money is great. Like if anyone wants to give me money, I'll take it. But I use this analogy. So I don't know what clubs are out here in Orange County, but if we wanted to get into the club and it costs $10,000 to get a table in the club, if I had $10,000 in my bank account to buy that table, but I don't know the promoter at the club, I still can't get in the club. It doesn't matter if I have the money in my bank account. And so we're seeing that a lot with money that's being invested into these companies by underestimated or underrepresented founders. They're getting an amount of investment, but they don't have those connections to the right people that can help them scale and grow their businesses. So they still can't even get in, So what we've done is we've taken our network of celebrities, professional athletes, brought them in. So where now founders are getting a front of the line pass. They're having access to people, to opportunities, to resources that they wouldn't ordinarily have, and they're able to scale their businesses like everybody else can.
Now, where can people reach you? I think I see the
Yes.
email address.
So you can you can email me, alicia@dearmamavc.com. You can go to my Instagram, Alicia the Key. You can find me on Twitter, but I don't tweet. I guess now I have to make a TikTok because there is one. And then we have our website too, is dearmamaventures.com.
Any questions? Anyone? Yeah.
Yeah. So the question, what do we think is important to helping veteran students who are attending for the first time or re-entering academia. I think for one is just creating a safe space. So one, like, you're welcome here. I think one of the things that people often do when they see veterans, they say, oh, thank you for your service. And while yes, thank you, what that does in a lot of ways is like separate you from me, you know? So like, we're all welcome here. We're all people, like, happy to have you. Get to know them by their name, by who they are today, not as much by their military service or what they brought to the table. So people always want to know about like my everything that the military taught me and brought me, which is a huge part of my identity. But like, get to know, as you have, get to know me as who I am today too. So I think that's one of the big things, is get to know the person as the person, and then understanding that the pathway to education is different for a lot of people. So there might be barriers to learning, you know, based off potentially different mental health things, or, you know, any other life things that are going on. And this is for all students who are first time learners. The pathway to education is different. So how do we make that roadmap custom to those students versus like the one size fits all approach?
My chair just broke, so you were definitely in the power chair right there.
Oh, and I can't lower mine.
That's okay.
Do you all have any questions? Yeah. I know you have a question too. Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can you talk a little bit about how you develop your skills? How that kind of helps you?
Yeah, how I develop my grit. Man, nothing helps you develop grit like getting kicked in the face and having to get back up, right? So life is full of like twists and turns. It can be very fortunate, but very tough. And so I've kind of had I've had a lot of challenges that I've had to overcome in my life. I think one of the first places that's not like trauma based, not like losing a family member, that I learned grit is through jujitsu. So I learned Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I did like a 4-week very intensive course on that. And like, there's nothing that like humbles you like one, like getting punched in the face. But I had that taught me like I can get punched in the face. Like I'm actually so much stronger than I knew. And I remember starting this 4-week course, 1 hour into it, thinking, there's no way I'm going to do this. I'm going to quit. And I showed up the next day and the next day, the next day. And then I got to the end of that 4 weeks and I was like, wow, like I did it. I did 4 intense weeks of this military. It was a military fighting class. And that was one of the first things where I was like, okay, like I put myself through something tough and I like developed this muscle. Like I felt like my heart got like heart got stronger, not physically, but like what I could endure. And so that's one of the first places. And then of course, losing my mother and having to deal with grieving and still grieving, but like maneuvering through life past that, it really opened up my eyes to what life could be. And I felt more equipped to just take on, but also enjoy what life had to bring me. Thank you.
Alicia, this has been incredible, and it's very fitting. This is our first audience podcast. So this was really great. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Could wait 1 second. I just want to introduce our next speaker.
Okay.
Celine Eichler. Be aging myself a little bit. I gave her her first job when she was 18, and she stayed in the entertainment industry, and she became very successful and gave it all up to become an entrepreneur. She created a vegan bakery that's distributing all over the country, and she started it from scratch. We're going to be talking to her about her entrepreneurial journey. Very, very interesting. Do you know Rugrats and Real Monsters? That's her.
Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And I also want to talk about our International Food and Culture Festival we're going to be having. We have about 120 countries represented at this university. And we're going to be celebrating those countries and those cultures at an International Food and Culture Festival. It's going to be a lot of fun. Just want you to all be aware of that. We're looking forward to it.
You have a question?
Yes.
Okay, let's hear it. Why did I join the Army? Okay, so I joined the Army to spite my mother.
That's right. I
need to come up for a better answer when you hear this story. So my mom, I was always like a good kid. I don't like to use good and bad with kids, like words, but I was like a teenager. I was very sassy. I was in sports and academic decathlon, like all these things. And so one day my mom was like, I'm sending you to military school. And I was like, fine, do it. And I was old enough that I could enlist. I was like 17. So I enlisted in the Army. And then my mom was like, what are you going to do? Jump out with a Louis Vuitton parachute? And I was like, if they issue me one. So I went. But my grandfather, who we lost him from cancer, when he was diagnosed from cancer, I asked him, I said, Papa, what is the one thing that you wish you could do differently in life? And he said, I wish I had the opportunity to serve, and I wish that I went on more adventures. And so he's like, you're young, before you're married or have kids, just go on as many adventures as possible. And so I was like, yep, this is it. Like, this was right before as I was leaving for basic training. And I was like, this is a good decision. So I went. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why.
And
So
something,
don't spite your mothers.
yeah, mine sent me to military school
Yeah.
for sure. But one thing I should have mentioned was that you've got a database of about 2,000 entrepreneurs,
Uh-huh.
and it's made up of a significant number of diverse entrepreneurs,
Yes.
which you raised that there's really no excuse for a large corporation not to have a diverse board, because you basically have some really heavy hitters
Yeah.
who could be used.
Yeah. I have thousands of entrepreneurs. So it's actually more than 2,000 now. It's about 3,500.
Yeah,
And so these are highly qualified entrepreneurs. About 40% of them are Black, brown women, person of color, and or military veterans. So we have,
that's great to
I'm the
know.
plug,
Yeah,
as they say
very
on the
good.
streets.
So once again, really thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, everybody.